What do you reckon about board games getting like really crazy these days? Do you reckon that's true?
Oh, I mean, they're becoming more complex.
Yeah.
Is what you mean?
And like more like well made.
Oh, yes.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
the tabletop game revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon it's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite board game, Craig?
Well, we've got into Splendor.
Oh,
I
yes.
know what that is.
Yeah, you guys are great at that.
So yeah, we've got introduced by some friends, and then we bought our own. And then,
Is that D and John?
yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone that
They're
plays with
masters.
us then sort of goes and gets one.
Yeah.
So
Oh, you say it was D and John. But
Yeah.
okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the Chip Lunch podcast, and it's awesome to have you along with us. And I've got, first of all, guest host along for the ride again.
Yes.
Back
Back again.
Favorite shirt on.
My favourite shirt.
Favorite Friday shirt. A lot of
it's
the
a
time.
Good Friday shirt.
Second best rescue.
Yep.
Very nice. How are you, Tim?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Thank you, Joel.
Great. Are you excited for today's podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a full day of podcasting. It's
Oh,
very
we have
exciting.
actually.
Yeah.
Yes. You're joining me on the Sugar Zorba later, but right now, joining us on the Chip Lunch. Let's welcome Craig. Welcome, Craig.
Joel, Tim, good morning.
Morning.
That's very official. I like that. Not to sound disparaging, but it's very Craig Smith. Very solid name. That.
Is it?
Yeah. Do people tell you that? Just.
No, I don't get it too often.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well,
There's-
Smith's such a common name. You sort of, I think when you're checking in hotels, they wonder, is that really your name? You know,
Oh, really?
that sort of,
It's the generic.
yeah.
Does that happen? Does it?
Yeah.
Are you related to the famous John Smith, who's on all the credit cards?
John Citizen?
Yeah,
John
John
Citizen.
Citizen. Yeah, it's always John Citizen or John Smith, isn't it?
No.
No. Okay, no relation. That's good.
No.
Well, welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Good to be here.
You were just telling us that you're about to go and do volunteering at Salvation Army. How do I describe that? Sorry, so a drop-in center,
Yeah, community hub, they call it.
community hub. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, we'll get into that in the meantime.
Yep.
Sorry, we'll get into that soon. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask you the first question, which is. Now I got this wrong last episode.
You did.
It was very poor, wasn't it? But I'm going to get it right this time. I still went to go, how did you become a Christian? Which is very funny. But however, the first question is, how do you like to eat your hot chips?
Hot chips. Well, I'm not a big hot chips fan, to be honest.
Don't know if we
They're a
can
great
continue.
side serve to a hamburger or something, but
Yep.
I'm not majorly into hot chips, but I'd prefer wedges with sour cream and chili. That would be my choice. So
What do you
hot
reckon?
chips on their own, yeah.
Not as good.
No.
Have you had a bad experience?
I don't think I've had a bad experience, but you can do, yeah. I don't know. It's not my preferred way of having potatoes. Mashed potatoes
Okay.
is probably, yeah, or oven baked potatoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you, with mashed potato, do you have like your own way of doing it? Like, are you pretty solid on the mashed potatoes?
Yeah. It's
Yeah?
got to have a fair bit of milk and butter in it.
Yes, I
And-
agree. Also, I don't mind a bit of cream.
Yeah,
That
I think
actually-
that happens a bit at our house too.
Okay, so not a preference for hot chips too much.
No,
I've got a question though, and this is more of a broader question. Where does the sour cream and sweet chili sauce come from with wedges? Does anybody know?
No.
Oh.
I don't know.
It's a great invention, though.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm all
I
all
don't
about
know.
it.
I don't like it that much.
You're missing out, man.
Well, I've tried it. I haven't said no. I don't. I've never done that before, but
Oh.
I think I don't like sweet chili sauce. I think that's the
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, right.
Sour cream, yes, is quite good, but I don't know. Do you
You
reckon
try it with
that's-
a hot chili sauce instead?
That'd probably be worse. I just don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
Like, that seems such a. I mean, isn't it an Australian thing? Someone's like, "Oh, I'll chuck a bit of sweet chili sauce on that. See how it
Not
goes."
sure. Hudson can fact check us.
Yeah,
for-
if he's not too busy doing something else. His face is currently blocked from my view, so I can't tell what he's actually doing. Okay, so usually wedges if you're going to have chips, kind of thing, but
Yeah.
stick to the jacket potato,
Yeah.
or a mash.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you go cold mash or not?
No.
No.
Who has
Okay.
cold mash?
Yeah.
Well, I always want to go back to Wang with his cold chips.
Oh,
So
right.
have you heard Wang's story,
No, I
Craig?
haven't.
That so he likes to get Macca's chips sometimes, and he doesn't mind ordering it being delivered because then the chips are slightly cold. And sometimes he will put the chips in the fridge and eat them the next day cold.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Okay.
Quite honestly, it's a disgrace.
Mm.
But we
Cold
love
chips.
Wang, so
Yeah.
we can't do that. Yeah, but everybody else has said no, can't do that.
No.
Ridiculous. So that's why I was asking the cold mash thing.
Macca's chips are bad enough to have them cold.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
And if you do have to have chips, they've got to be really crunchy. That's
Okay.
my only stipulation.
Right.
So if I am going to have hot chips, they've got to be
Thick
crunchy.
cut, thin cut, French fry.
thicker
Yeah.
cut.
Thick cut.
Yeah.
Mm. They've got to be cooked a fair bit.
Yeah.
Good
Actually
oil.
well done.
You need the good oil.
Mm.
All right. Cool. Well, that's chip question done. That was the first question, Tim, if you were wondering.
Okay. It's good to keep up. I got confused last episode.
I've thrown you off. This is episode 162, I think.
Oh.
And so we're getting, yes, Hudson gives you the nod. So sometimes, you just get in a bit of a rut. And my brain felt like I had to shake it up last week.
Okay.
Anyway, let's go back to the more standard line, which is, Craig, how did you become a Christian?
So I grew up in a Christian family. I've had that input since very young. And then actually I made the decision in the Billy Graham Crusade, 1979.
1979 one.
So,
right.
yeah, so I think that was the last time he toured.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up going with the church group out to the stadium ended up going forward during that, appeal.
Was that at
So,
the SCG or is that at or the showground or something?
I thought it was
I think you also went to Randwick.
Randwick.
Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Randwick
okay.
Racecourse.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was, I think there was a lot of build up to it where there was things at St Ives Showground and I'm not really sure.
Mm.
So yeah,
So how old were you then?
10.
Only 10?
Yeah.
Wow. And what church were you going to at the time?
So I grew up in Chatswood, so
Okay.
I'm just a visitor to the Shire. And
This whole Shire thing. That's so annoying. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
so grew up in Chatswood and went to a Brethren church.
Okay.
So it was they called it a guarded Brethren church. So I'm from Heathcote and there's quite a few Brethrens out at Heathcote. But this was a different version, not open or closed Brethren. They call themselves guarded. And I think the reason around that is that the bread and the wine is the main focus of their service. And not anybody could just come and partake of that. You had to be, so they protected how they worshipped around the bread and the wine.
Mm.
And so you had to be sort of go through some formalities before you could join and take the bread and the wine.
Mm.
And so that's the reason for the word guarded.
Mm.
It was a beautiful Christian people. As a child, it was pretty tough because it was about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half service just around the emblems in the centre of the room. And there's no music. So by today's standard, very conservative. And there's no paid minister. It was all sort of the elders led the church. And so the men would, within the congregation, get up and pray, or they would get up and share some verses from the Bible, or pick a hymn. And so throughout the morning, a theme would sort of develop. And as a kid, you're lost to all of what's really going on, but you could pick it up as you got older. So a theme would sort of develop around what part of what you're remembering around the bread and the wine. It was not ideal for kids, but there was Sunday school before that, and then you would do this morning remembrance service.
Yeah. When you say a theme would develop, is that as in that was pre-prepared by the elders, or they
No.
were just people would keep sharing and
Yeah, spontaneous.
yeah, right.
Oh, right.
Interesting.
So, yeah, if a certain hymn sort of was around, forgiveness or something like that, then someone might think, oh, yeah, I'll read a few verses about that, and then sort of some prayer around that. So there was no structure. So, yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Now, you mentioned hymns. We also said there's no music. So was it like you sung a cappella hymns?
A cappella.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that was and so then they had lunch at church, and then there would be an in-depth Bible study. So it's an all-day thing. So we would sort of leave before lunch and go home because we were sort of, after an hour, the kids are sort of losing their minds. And so we would go home after that. And then they started a Bible study for the youth in Sunday afternoons. And we would meet together around a meal, and one of the guys we would sing songs, and I think there was an organ then, and then you would get sort of a 20-minute sort of sermon, and that wasn't early on, or you had to sort of get to a certain age when you went to that. So I think the difficulty around it, you could sort of be going there for a long time, but not really learn too much. And I don't have a mind that retains a lot of theology or details around things, but you could be going there for 10 years as this morning remembrance service, but not actually learn too much. But I do miss having the bread and the wine once a month. That took me a long while to get used to, because it was just a strange thing to have it so irregularly. And then if you're away, it's sort of 2 months until you sort of have it again.
Were you having it every week?
Every week.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you, for people that are listening or watching, can you tell us more about the Brethren Church? Because I don't, including me, I don't really know what it's about. So can you tell us more about like the theological background, or even the like? Why were you even part of the Brethren Church? You were obviously there with your family. But. Yeah.
So I'm not sure how my grandparents, so on my mum's side, my grandparents were going there. It's strange how it started, but they were affiliated with a couple of congregations in America and Canada. So there's not many of them. So there's this link between them, how like there would be missionaries sort of sent between the churches and visiting people. But the theology is very very similar to what we worship in the Anglican Church. I think they do take some of the things literally, like they still. Well, when I was there, I think it's relaxed a lot now, but the women would still wear head coverings, and the women couldn't partake or share openly in the communion service. So it was just the men. So I think legalistic, they could get bogged down on too much legalism. But apart from that, it's very solid Bible-based teaching, and which is quite amazing because it's reliant on just 10 or 12 elders that would sort of all agree on the same sort of theology and sort of and share that together without any formal training or so it's. But I'm not sure how it originated.
Yeah,
way back.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, could it have even come from England originally?
Okay, because I was more just interested in your experience of it. Because you said you became a Christian when you were 10. Did anything change in your relationship to being in that church, or even just in your life as I am a Christian?
I don't think there was any standout changes because you're sort of living in this Christian environment already. And Yeah.
It's like a slight expectation you are a Christian already, but
Yeah.
you could have taken it on for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, there wasn't any remarkable change. But I think I fell into the trap of, as I got older, you're just going through the motions, and you're there because of your parents, and you're going through the motions, and your grandparents are there as well, and you sort of, this is where I should be. But then you sort of, when you get to sort of 18 to 20, you sort of go, well, is this really what I want to be doing? So yeah, it's.
Was it what you wanted to be doing?
Yeah, it was. Well, I think it was a really good grounding in for my faith and so what I believed in. And then I sort of had I went to a public school where hardly any of the other people in my group were sort of Christians or nowhere near Christians. And so I'm thankful that because of my grounding and my faith, I just never went down the path that a lot of them did. Whether that was soft drugs or alcohol, I sort of tried, drank a little bit and tried a few things, but you had the grounding and you always came back to your faith. So yeah, it was a real good place to grow up. Yeah.
What's Chatswood like when you were growing up? In the 70s, as you were saying?
Yeah. No, it was good. So we lived on West Chatswood, and that's Lane Cove, border of Lane Cove. Really nice, leafy area. Very similar to here.
It's leafy up there, isn't it?
Yeah, just like here. And it was great. Like we had a park down the road with BMX jumps. So we all had bikes. So we would just come home and you just out till dark pretty much most days in the park, digging building jumps or riding your bikes. And then sort of it gets dark and you head home. And these were the days when your parents had no idea where you were. And there was sort of a innocent freedom to sort of, explore and be outside.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen that way much. I was just thinking, just comparing to what my children are doing now. They're like, oh no, they're not out roaming around the streets.
No, that's right.
Any night, actually. They usually got something on. But it's a very different way of growing up. So if Chatswood, so you went to, I'm guessing, local schools in Chatswood.
Chatswood primary and high school.
Okay.
Yep.
And so can you elaborate a little bit more on being a Christian in high school? Was there any Christian group that you went to, or you said none of your friends were Christians?
Yeah. No, not really. There was an IFCF, ISCF.
Interschool Christian Fellowship.
Yeah.
I can only remember because of what it stands for. ISCF.
Oh yes.
So there was a group, but I never really was comfortable going there, and so I sort of went a couple of times, and I didn't feel comfortable there, and that was probably around not wanting my friends to sort of know that that's where I was going, to be honest. So you want to fit in, but you don't want to go too far along with them. That was my line.
Yeah, you were just worried about losing friendships to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you remember a time that you made like a decision? You're like, no, I'm a Christian. I'm not going to do that during your high school years.
Oh yeah, I think that happened regularly. Yeah. Especially out of school things where they would just want to drink and it just was it didn't really do anything for me. So I would sort of pull back from that.
What age for you did drinking become a thing in high school? I'm just curious, comparing it to what was for my age.
I reckon easy 16, like year 10.
Yeah, okay.
Year 10. There seemed to be, plenty of alcohol around. Yeah.
Okay. But maybe it might have been a bit later for my age. It's interesting.
And was that sort of out at parks late at night or people's homes or? Yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed to
Bit
be
of everything.
public
Just, yeah,
public
for everything.
drinking in the
Public drinking,
parks
yeah,
and things. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
So
I recently read something, I don't know how true it is, and it was about kind of like, I think it was a private school group of boys like doing stuff that wasn't very appropriate. And they were saying, someone wrote an article and like an op-ed about it, saying that these guys are just trying to show that they're like they can belong in the world. They're about to finish school and they're trying to show that they can be adults. I was like, oh, that's a really fascinating way to do it, because they've obviously observed behavior from their parents and then are doing it in probably a more adolescent way and going, oh, I can do this. But I suppose that maybe I'm just asking a wider question with you two. Do you reckon that's true? I don't know if it's just a thought that was triggered in my mind. Do you reckon that was true when you were that age? And I think it was when I think back of when I was 16, 17, when people were doing that. What do you reckon? Any thoughts?
I'm not real sure. So what's the question?
Well, the question is, we talk about underage drinking and you're saying you're uncomfortable with it. Other people are doing it. And I've always been curious about why people are doing it. Because I'm similar to you. I was never like, no, this isn't for me. I was always like, no, I don't want to do this. And I think part of that was because of the behavior of my dad. Not he was doing it, but it was because of his father drank a lot. And so he was trying to show me a different way of living.
Yeah.
But then I've got that growing up with my friends or peers doing the complete opposite. And so this article this guy was writing was, people that are doing a lot of drinking and what's called antisocial behavior are doing it to show that they want to grow up. Like they're ready to move off into the adult world, but they're actually not ready. What do you think? Got something, Tim?
Do you want me to get nerdy?
Absolutely.
So there is a lot of literature, and has been for a number of decades now, on the lack of initiation rites in the West.
Jonathan Haidt.
So he talks about it. But comparatively speaking, he's quite late to the game. He's just picking up things that lots of other people have already noticed, which is you go back to sort of tribal societies and traditional societies, and you have these entering manhood or entering womanhood.
You get like sent out
rites.
into the jungle.
Yeah. So you have these traditional society where you go out, and I know that so some of our Indigenous friends from YouthWorks out in WA, I used to do some trips out there with YouthWorks College, and where we stayed with them, there was a ridge behind that, and behind that was we weren't allowed to go there because we were white fellas, but behind that was the initiation grounds, and the little bits that they would tell us about what would happen behind there. You've often got circumcision for the guys, what happened in sort of adolescence, and then all sorts of other things, like there'd be trials and there'd be staying out in the darks and these kinds of things. But the idea is, like in a lot of these, nearly all traditional societies we're aware of have these things where you take the child out, something happens, and you bring back the adult. And so, the boy goes out and the man comes home kind of idea. So it's a very clear kind of moment in time of transitioning into leaving childhood behind and adults. And I think I've read somewhere that in ancient Rome, for girls, you would have your kind of your soft toy that you had when you were a baby, and somewhere around sort of puberty. So for girls, sort of somewhere between 11, 13, ish. Part of your becoming a woman was you actually put your toy in the fire and watch it burn. But as a very clear, we are destroying. It was this intentional leaving behind of your childhood.
Moving on.
You have moved on now. This is no longer who you are. You are now this. And so, but what has happened in the West over centuries is that we have lost all sense of that. But there seems to be a deeply ingrained sense of wanting to do that. And so I think what you're noticing is that kind of movement of, when teenagers try and do what they see adults do and mimic, is this idea that it's almost like they're trying to go through transition rites, but they don't have the guides to do it. And that's one of the big problems is there's no, because in all of these traditional societies, you have the adults taking out the boy
And guiding it.
and guiding the process.
Yeah.
Whereas this is guys getting drunk
Yeah.
in the park or doing any social
Yeah.
activities or whatever. And it is around adult activities. It's, it's drinking, it's sexualization, it's all these kind of, dangerous behavior, proving who you are. And it seems to be this, in the place of the fact that we don't do any of these things in the West. So
There you go.
there you go.
What a tangent.
Nerd out complete.
Yeah, I apologise for that. anything you want to
Went too nerdy.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it actually. It was helpful. To anything you wanted to contribute to that, Craig, or do you think Tim's right?
Well, I think then you've got sort of probably the next generation of parents are then trying to probably overprotect their kids to sort of counteract that. So
Of like they might have gone too far.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I guess you can know what's going on out there. So you sort of, what do you do? Do you fill your kids with 5 nights a week of sport and dancing and keep them busy? Divert them elsewhere.
Fast forward, and we can come back and fill in the gaps later. But I mean, you have 2 of your own young adult children,
3
young adult children now. Was there anything that you sort of were thinking of and being intentional about as they went through teenagehood and young adulthood in terms of helping them become adults?
Yeah, good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, we're leading by example. Robin, my wife, is very good at the emotional side of things. I'm not as well connected emotionally, which I'm understanding now. So yeah, I find that harder. But so as a couple, we make, I think, a pretty good balance, and leading by example. And just being there for them. And it's. I mean, we've passed through that phase, but it's out of your control because you don't know who they're going to become friends with and the influences they're under. So a lot of it comes down to, supporting them, loving them, praying for them, and leading by example. And that's the start of the letting go process, which, you've just got to sort of let that rope out and
I'm finding
see where they find themselves.
my eldest is only 11. And I'm finding that very hard.
Yeah.
And I know I need to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you used to be a baby. I used to hold you. I used to walk around with you and hold you, and I used to be like, totally enamored with anything I did.
Yeah.
And actually, at this stage, he's pretty into me, but I know that's coming to an end soon.
Yep.
So I'm like,
Yep.
Makes me sad. Anyway, sorry to make this all about me. But it's like, it's interesting that you're saying you've got to be there for them. And I do wonder during teenage years if parents are actually there for their kids. And what do you think that looks like being there for them? Because you are letting them go out into the world more, so you can't be with them 100% of the time.
No, that's right. I think weekends are a very precious thing to have with your kids, and I loved going to watch their soccer games on Saturday mornings, and I coached a team for quite a few years, and Robin did as well. So involved in that. Getting them involved in those sort of activities as a family. And
being part of it, like you're saying, whether you're coaching or at least being there for the whole time. Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend, he coaches his son's OzTag team. They're only like 6 and 7. And there's a boy there who his behaviour's not ideal. And it's because his parents are never there. His parents get him to get taken there. Well, not never there, I should say. But when his dad turned up once, he was the best player in the game.
Yeah.
And I think just use that as an illustration of, you don't have to be there at every single game, I don't think, but an illustration of how much it means to your children that you're there, no matter how they perform.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing that I think I learned is that, my dad turned up pretty much every single football game, every single soccer game I played. And it meant a lot to me now that you look back on it. You're like, I'm so glad you were there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that I don't know why it's so important, but maybe I'm trying to do something. I want you to see me there trying to do something. Yeah. Let's go back to Chatswood Times. Sounds like a TV show. Fast Times at Chatswood High. I'm just curious about your being in the Brethren Church in Chatswood, and then how did that kind of intersect with you finishing high school and going out into the world, kind of what we're talking about now?
Yep.
How did that play out for you? Did you finish school, go to uni? Was church still a big thing for you then, or did you end up going to a different church? Like, how did that happen at around 17, 18?
Yeah. I always went, so the church we went to was at North Ryde, so we're living at Chatswood and went to North Ryde. And I was constantly going there. So that was a constant in my life. And then finished school. After year 12, I went and got a job with the ANZ Bank, started in Chatswood. And so this was sort of the era I wanted to be a stockbroker. This was my
the 80s.
The Gordon Gecko greed is good era. And so I thought, right, I want to be a stockbroker. and so anyway, through a connection of my grandfather, he sort of knew as a relative or a brother, uncle of his was a manager at the ANZ Bank. So he took me along and we sort of met him, and anyway, so I ended up going through the whole process of applying and got a job at the ANZ Bank. And so that was my goal, to get into stockbroking, and this was sort of an entry. And so I was working in I started out as a teller in the ANZ Bank, and then ended up through a few branches in North Sydney in the back office where they sort of processed things. And then I moved to a merchant bank, so Bankers Trust. So that was sort of a step to sort of get towards that. They had stockbroking and futures teams, and so worked for them for a while. And I ended up getting on this is when the futures floor was still a live floor trading.
And you're yelling bye-byes, sell, kind of thing.
So pretty soon after the actual stock exchange had moved to digital, but the futures were still traded on the pits and on the floor. And so I ended up in that environment as a support. I wasn't a trader, I was a support, but that would be the pathway. If I stuck around, I could sort of end up trading futures. And so I got to this place where I wanted to be, and this is what I wanted to achieve. And it just had this real hollow feel and existence around sort of people that were there, the way they behaved. It was all just superficial, and it just didn't feel right. And so I sort of then, still going to the church during this time and going along. And this is sort of, I'm now getting sort of 20, 21. So still involved in going along. That's one of my sort of priorities, to go to that church and still believe. And so anyway, I wasn't happy in this location. And another passion of mine as growing up was skiing, snow skiing. And so we had a sort of an annual holiday as a family going down to Charlotte's Pass and skiing for a week. And so I had the dream of going to Canada and doing some skiing. And so I was looking around. I applied for a job down at the Snow at Jindabyne for the ski tube. And then a job came up for Christian Youth Travel in Cooma. It's a Christian campsite, and they would employ 4 guys and 4 girls every winter for 3 months. And so I applied for that job and got it. And so then I resigned from where I was working and headed down there. And that's where Robin was on the team. And so we met her there.
There you go.
And so that was a so that was sort of reflecting on, God sort of put me in that position, and wasn't because of any high theological sort of desire, but I wanted to ski, and this church campsite was nearby the ski field, so that's why I went down there.
Yeah.
It was a great 3 months down there.
Now, is that where, I don't know, you had the Woolies?
The Woolies,
on?
yeah.
You had the Woolies
So
were there?
Alison,
Was it Alison's dad?
Alison's dad, Bruce and Heather Bolton, ran the campsite.
Yes, okay.
And so he has come and visited Sunday morning a couple of times.
Yes.
And we've had it's been beautiful to see them again. Yeah.
Oh, we have not had the Woolies on yet.
Okay.
As yet. We're working on it.
Excellent.
So what do you have to do if you're at the campsite working the camp? Are you helping run the camps as people come through for snow trips?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have school groups Monday to Friday, then church groups on the weekend.
Right.
And so it was just, very busy.
Yeah. Would have been.
Yeah, turning rooms over and cleaning and working in the kitchen alongside those staff.
And you were glad that you applied for it?
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
It was very good.
What do you think you took out of doing it? It was only for 3 months.
Yeah.
So what did you think was the best part? Besides meeting your then wife?
Well, that's right.
Soon to be wife.
That's right. I don't know. It was just a nice place to work. You're surrounded by Christians, and it was a really fun environment to be amongst, sort of that time of my life.
I'm sure I'm getting quite a contrast to the ASX trading floor.
Yeah, it was. It was very much.
Yeah.
But it was, and we had pretty much had lunch together, and you had a 1 hour Bible study. It was pretty full on. It was a very busy time.
You said you didn't go there with theological reasons. You went there because you wanted to ski. And but despite that, was there anything you noticed God shaping you, or was there anything sort of theologically output, I suppose, in terms of your discipleship?
Well, I guess it confirmed for me indirectly. Like, I'm looking back on it now, it sort of paved the way for me outside of that sort of financial career path. And meeting Robin, working in a great environment for those 3 months. I'm not sure if that's answered your question. But
that's all right.
It kept me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was that a fear for you? Do you think that you were going to get pulled in by the world somehow, and that's kind of helped you get back on track in a sense?
It could be, like, if I'd ended up working in Jindabyne with a whole group of secular people.
Because you love skiing.
Yeah.
Did you get to ski much in Cooma?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Every day I had off, I skied.
Yeah, okay.
So it was a busy job, and then I would just.
Because it's still a bit of a drive from Cooma to the ski fields, though, isn't it?
It's an hour and just over an hour and 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So it's a solid.
I'm guessing the roads weren't as good back then either.
No, that's right. But we'd moved on from horse and cart, Joel.
Sorry.
It wasn't that
bad. What an interesting time. Still had horse and carts, but the ASX has gone digital. So, but it's only for 3 months, right? So what was your plan coming back?
So there was a pipeline dream of going to Canada.
Oh, yes, you said that.
So to go to Canada, and so I through a connection in our church I was going to, one of the people there said, look, actually the church has got its own campsite. So they're sort of in the Blue Mountains. So they're in that market.
Yes.
And one of the guys said, he knew I wanted to go to Canada. He said, oh, look, we've got a speaker coming out from Canada who works in a pioneer Peter Bloom was his name, and Pioneer Campsite was in in Lake Muskoka area, north of Toronto.
Okay.
I get the two cities mixed up.
So do I, actually. Toronto and Vancouver.
Vancouver and Toronto.
I get those
It's
mixed up.
Vancouver on the west side.
Yeah, I think Vancouver's on the west
Yeah.
side, yeah. I'll check
So
on the map.
Up north of there. And so anyway, he came and had a chat, and I linked up with him, and this is way before, you could just email someone and say, I'm coming over.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we lined this up that I could go and work for him. And so I had sort of this connection, and then, but I'd already met Robin. And then so after we left there, we sort of started our relationship a month or two after leaving there. And she knew I had this dream, and I said, I won't go. And she said, no, you got to go. Otherwise you'll be regretful.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I still went over for 7 months.
Oh, wow.
Went to that camp, went to 2 campsites there, and then sort of Greyhound bussed it right across to the East Coast, dipped down into America. And so I had 7 months doing that and getting that out of my system.
Wow. So, like, what was it like going to Canada? So you obviously at the ski fields all the time, is my guess.
Yeah, that was at the end of the trip. So, yeah, it was great. Just, getting out there and traveling, meeting other people and working in these campsites.
Similar roles, sort of behind the scenes, kitchen,
similar
rooms.
roles.
Yeah.
And actually I wasn't there in peak season. Like summer camp is very busy for those camps. I was there off season. But that's the time I was sort of there, and I was sort of on the maintenance team and painting and just doing odd jobs. And so there wasn't any campers. It was
Right, okay.
It was quiet.
Yep.
But yeah, it was good.
Was it the same as the Cooma campsite thing? It was like you were glad that you did it?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Wow.
And I think, the having the benefit of, wise counsel and people around you that, keep you on the right path.
Mm.
Okay.
I was going to say, and I imagine different Christian experiences than what you had in the Brethren Church in terms of,
Yeah.
like, you already had other church experiences and other Christian experiences outside of your Brethren Church experience?
Not a lot, to be honest.
Mm.
Not a lot. I think we went as a youth group to Hillsong one night.
Right.
And went there, that sort of
Very
the
different.
razzle dazzle, and so. But yeah, look, we didn't have a lot of exposure to other churches. But and the campsites were fairly isolated. You didn't sort of have a church service as such around those, so I didn't get to see any comparisons for churches there.
Mm.
So did you dip in and out of churches at all, on that trip, or not really, not so much?
Yeah, there wasn't really the opportunity to go.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't see. Well, yeah, those were church based, so there would be sort of prayer meetings and little things each morning. But wasn't in a position to actively seek out a church. And my daughter's actually over in Canada at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And she's in the same position. She's been to a couple of churches and they've just been way out there. Very strange.
Oh, really?
So,
That's interesting. So one question I got around that, the last question, I suppose, around like going to Canada, and so you and Robin met at Cooma,
yeah.
and you thought, oh, this is something worth pursuing.
Yeah.
with Robin.
Yeah.
So because you would have been in proximity to each other for quite a bit, obviously, being at Cooma.
Yep.
So then you said you just started your relationship, but then she's like, no, you should go. Did that increase your appeal of Robin, that she was willing to let you go and do that?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I sort of thought, well, I shouldn't leave. We've just sort of started this relationship.
And obviously it was important to you, and you were enjoying it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I guess yeah, she was very gracious in suggesting I still went, and I don't think she had to say it twice. And I sort of said, "Okay, I'm going to go."
Thanks.
Yeah, so that worked out well.
And what church was she going to at the time?
She was going to, so she grew up in Grays Point.
Oh,
Was
okay.
going to the Baptist church,
Yes. Yep.
Right.
and then they moved to Cronulla, and they were going to the Uniting Church, which had a really good youth group Sunday nights and a really good crowd. Back in the
Would that be the one that Lou went to then? Lou Crawshaw?
Was she at the Uniting? I
No,
can't
she was in
remember now.
Uniting. She was in Cronulla. That's all
Yeah.
I know. Anyway.
Was it a congregational? Oh, I can't
Oh, I
remember
don't
now.
know.
Yeah.
Stu went to congregational church
Okay.
down there. Anyway, what was my question around? I had one, and it's gone.
and I didn't even so when we went to Cooma, there was people from Victoria,
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple from Sydney. So it was great that Robin lived in Cronulla. I had no idea where Cronulla was. I'd never heard.
I was
I
going
don't think I've ever heard of it.
Really?
And so
I was going to say, how do you start a relationship when you're in Chatswood and she's in Cronulla?
That's
and,
right.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was
You can't just text.
no.
Meet me here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, it would just be weekends because we were both working. So yeah, it would just be weekends.
Did you
So-
just what would you do? Did you drive or you catch a train?
I had a car, so I was driving,
Nice.
but Robin would often come over on the train,
Mm.
and yeah, and then or I'd drop her back Sunday night, or
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
It's a different way of doing things. Okay, so then you return from Canada and the US.
Yep.
You still don't have a job, I'm guessing, like a job to come back to or anything.
Yeah. Well, I did before I went over. I needed to get some more money together, so I worked for a friend through church. My parents, who had a building, he was running a building company, and so he said, so he put me on as a labourer.
Yep.
And I started doing this for a couple of weeks, and I said, "This is great. You're outside, you're doing physical stuff," and I loved it. It
Okay.
was great.
Yeah, okay.
And so, as opposed to being in an office, fluorescent lights and sitting down, or even on the futures floor, this was great.
Okay.
I loved it. And so I did that up till I left, and then as soon as I came back, he put me back on,
Yeah, like I'll come
And-
back.
and so started working back for him. And anyway, after I don't know how long, sort of 6 months or so, he said, "Look, if you really want to do this, you need to go and study, get some study,
Do an apprenticeship.
do building."
Yep.
So anyway, so then I applied and didn't do an apprenticeship. I just went to TAFE and studied building.
Okay.
And so that over 4 years, that then got me my builder's license without doing the trade.
Oh, okay.
So, and more the project management side.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
And then did you get a job back? You're still always working for this guy?
I for a little bit, yeah, for a bit longer, and then once we got married, I moved down to Caringbah. Caringbah was the first place we lived, and so all of his projects were way too far away. So I ended up getting a job with a company based in Caringbah, but our work was still all around. So yeah, started working for another company.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It all worked out well.
Yeah.
How old were you and Robin when you guys got married?
24. I was 24. She was 23.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm guessing you were able to buy a place in Caringbah and...
Yeah, we did. Well, we rented in the towers opposite the 7-Eleven at Caringbah,
yes.
Witherong
Yep.
Road.
Yep.
That was a great apartment.
Yeah.
And then we bought a unit in Gymea,
Oh,
just
okay.
behind the shops. So yeah, we lived there for a couple of years.
And how was your adjustment to living in the Shire?
Great. I loved it. I loved it. Well, Chatswood by then was getting pretty busy.
Okay.
With traffic and just the high rises were all starting. So yeah, to come down here, it was quieter and closer to the beaches and
Yep.
yeah, so I loved it.
And is that what determined you you're obviously living in Chatswood, but you determined, I'd actually rather live in Shire when you guys got married?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, I don't think you've got a choice when you got to go where the wife is. That's the
Oh, do you?
that's
I don't know.
generally how it works.
Oh,
anyway.
okay.
But yeah, and I was happy to. Yeah.
So what church does that mean you guys are going to?
So Robin was still going. So we were sort of part-time going to hers at Cronulla Uniting and partly mine, depending where we were.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we decided to go to St Phil's at Caringbah.
Yep.
And to sort of planned ourselves as a couple rather than just carrying on, or not carrying on, but continuing on with where Robin had been younger and single. And it just felt, and we met another couple that were doing the same thing and going to St Phil's at Caringbah. And so we sort of established that as our church. As a couple.
Coming from different church backgrounds, you and Robin, and then going to St Phil's as an Anglican church.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of, not difficulties, but things you needed to adjust to that you'd been used to somewhere else and found it a little bit hard or found a bit surprising?
No, I don't. Not really. I think it was an easy transition. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I didn't think it. I think it was pretty seamless. Yeah, and I think it was, it was really good because we were young married. We had friends that were the same age, just got married as well, and it's a really exciting, beautiful time. And church, it was a good fit.
Yeah. That's really good. Well, I think that brings us to the end of part 1 of your episode. Part one. And thank you for your time. Just stay right there in that chair. But if you are listening or watching next week, we'll be back with Craig's second part of his episode. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Joel.
I'll see you very soon.
Very soon.
And thank you, Hudson, for editing. And we'll see you very soon, Hudson. May even be in the same clothes. We don't know. We'll see.
Swap shirts.
Actually, I might like Craig's shirt, I think.
Yes.
It's fancy.
Very fancy. It's a good texture.
It is, isn't it? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, you probably don't remember, but the old surfboard covers.
Yeah.
They have that were like this
Yeah.
material.
Yeah.
Nice. So maybe it's just made out of a surfboard cover.
Yeah.
Recycled. Well, stay tuned for more high impact content, like shirts being like board covers. And we'll be back next week with Craig's episode 2.